Welcome to G.I. Joe RPG Stories. In this podcast, I present fictional after-action reports based on our game sessions, playing the G.I. Joe role-playing game by Renegade Game Studios. I am David Martel, the Game Master, and this is episode 102, La Sombra de la Muerte. December 15th, 1986. The corridor between Mexico and Sierra Gordo has always been problematic. The U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration had been working alongside the Mexican government to try to end smuggling operations in the region. But despite measures and enforcement efforts, traffickers always found a way to bring their products into the United States, and organized crime had very deep pockets. DEA agent Earl Morris discovered that a large shipment of a dangerous new drug was set to be smuggled into Mexico by the Gamines cartel. Although they had risen to dominance in Beladonia, a small nation north of Colombia, they had recently expanded their operations northward into Sierra Gordo. Maurice had been monitoring the cartel for quite some time, and since he knew that they were using a biker gang as enforcers, he couldn't trust the Mexican police alone to intervene, so he requested backup. G.I. Joe agents Contact, Cracker, and Recondo arrived aboard a jeep at the rendezvous point. Maurice was accompanied by a man wearing a green balaclava. His pants had a distinct yellow and green tiger stripe pattern. "Gentlemen, thank you for your assistance. I am DEA agent Earl Maurice," he said. Then he gestured toward the masked individual. "Meet Needle, he's with Tiger Force." "Never heard of it," Contact replied. "It is part of G.I. Joe," Maurice clarified. "I'm just new," Needle said casually. His unit didn't officially exist yet. He knew that explaining who they were and what they did would take some time. Needle was part of a Mexican police anti-drug squad a few years ago, but before that, Morris hesitated for a moment. "I had my fair share of run-ins with the law," Needle added. "A former criminal, then," Cracker said with a smirk. "When you grow up in the barrios of Mexico," Needle said, "you have limited choices, but it provided me with strong, valuable connections." "And it is from those connections," Morris said, "that we learned about the shipment we're interested in." Contact shrugged and walked up to the masked man to shake his hand. "I'm Contact. This is Recondo, and the skinny one behind him with red head is Cracker." Needle gave Maurice a subtle look. Cracker didn't know that Needle had once played a role in his somewhat forced induction into G.I. Joe. While working for a New Mexico tech company months earlier, Cracker had unknowingly been involved in illegal operations. Maurice, who was investigating the company's ties to extensive enterprises, had the technician followed by Needle. When Cracker was later arrested for attempting to breach a military-grade server, Needle was part of the raid. However, because he had previously helped Captain Clemore recover a downed satellite in Brazil, Cracker was offered a place with G.I. Joe instead of serving prison time. Agent Maurice took out a map of the area and placed it on the hood of the vehicle. "Our mission objective is to intercept a massive drug shipment before it can cross into Mexico and from there reach the United States." "And what exactly is this new drug that seems so dangerous?" asked Contact. "La Sombra de la Muerte," Maurice said. "The shadow of death." "That's a presumptuous name for a simple drug," Cracker commented. Needle walked up to him, shooting him an angry glance. "This simple drug, as you say, is the single most dangerous substance I have ever seen," he said. "Those who take too much experience fits of rage, and they are no longer able to distinguish friend from foe." Then, lowering his eyes, "Some even kill loved ones, only to learn days later about the atrocities they had committed." From the way he spoke, the team understood that Needle had likely seen firsthand the damage caused by this drug. "We'll need to cross the rainforest on foot," Maurice continued, pointing at the map. "There we'll infiltrate the mission site, locate the drug shipment, and destroy it." "What kind of a position should we expect?" asked Contact. A biker gang known as Los Víboros del Infierno, Hell's Vipers, is likely to be on site to protect the shipment, Maurice replied. And what about backup? Asked Cracker. This is where the Mexican police comes in. Later, after arriving at the local police precinct, they were brought before Comandante Rodrigo Cortena, the chief of police in the region. When they entered his office, they noticed a strong cigar scent filling the air. The gray-haired man was seated at his desk, overlooking documents. Due to the high humidity, his khaki-green shirt was completely unbuttoned, and his unkempt beard gave him a disheveled look. Comandante Cortena, I am DEA Field Officer Earl Maurice, he said. We have intel that the Gamines cartel is preparing to smuggle a large shipment of drugs into Mexico. We need your men to provide backup and make the arrests. The Commandante looked displeased. You should have checked with me before coming, he said bluntly. I don't have men to spare. Maurice was taken aback. He had followed all proper protocols. This operation was cleared by the highest Mexican authorities. You should have been informed, he said. I don't read papers from Burocrata, Cortena replied. You do not call to ask permission, you do not get the men. We have intel indicating that Los Víboros del Infierno are involved in the smuggling. You're mistaken, senor, Cortena said. Los Víboros are not criminals. Just regular people riding motorcycles. We have photographic evidence that their leader is working for the Gamines cartel, Needle said. Ernesto Pardino. Must be joke. The chosen Maurice looked perplexed. The man's a saint. A benefactor in la comunidad. And not just in Sierra Gordo. Here in Mexico too. Agent Maurice placed photos on the desk supporting their claims. They showed Ernesto Pardino and members of Los Víboros del Infierno, alongside Hernando Gamines, the leader of the Gamines cartel. Guess you can't always trust appearances, huh? Cracker said with a smirk. The Commandante dismissed the pictures, without really looking at them. This proves absolutely nothing. Maurice had heard that Cortena was corrupt, but he hadn't expected him to be so blatant. Seeing that the conversation was going nowhere, Needle took advantage of the distraction to sneak behind his teammates and place a bug under the desk. He had to act fast as the discussion was getting out of hand. I decide to get arrested in my jurisdiction, Cortena shouted, rising angrily from his chair. Not the United States of America. He then gestured to police officers to escort them out. Once outside, Needle told the rest of the team about the bug that he had planted. As he started listening in, the surveillance immediately paid off. He overheard Cortena ordering a small group of officers to warn Pardino about the Americans. The Joes had no choice but to act quickly. They jumped into their jeep and went after the police officers. They tailed them all the way into the small town, then for several miles. And when the officers eventually spotted them, they accelerated, and the tail transformed into a full-blown chase. We're going to lose them! Shouted Tracker. No, we're not, replied Contact as he stood at the back of the jeep. He braced his heavy machine gun against the roll cage of the vehicle, aimed just above the police officers to invite them to stop, and opened fire. The loud, sustained roar of his Gatling gun convinced them to surrender. After capturing them, the Joes stripped the three officers of their uniforms and requisitioned their jeep. Rather than attempting a dangerous jungle infiltration, they decided to use the captured vehicle and uniforms to cross the border by the road. As they neared the camp, the Joes expected to find members of Los Víboros del Infierno. Instead, they found a deadlier kind of snake, Cobra. While Contact and Maurice hid in the woods, Tracker, Needle, and Recondo approached the camp in the stolen vehicle, and bluffed their way through the first checkpoint. There were only a few Cobra troopers defending the position, while Ernesto Pardino, who was on site, supervised workers loading crates into large containers. The opposition was less formidable than they had anticipated, and everything seemed to be going smoothly. But at that moment, a Cobra Moray hydrofoil arrived from the river and docked near the shipping containers. Cobra Vipers disembarked, and leading them was an officer wearing a distinctive red beret. "Major Carnage," Maurice said quietly, as he recognized the man. For Contact and Cracker, the name meant nothing, but Knockout, another G.I. Joe operative who wasn't present, would have gone nuts. But that's a story for another day. "What do we do?" Cracker asked quietly. "Let me think," Needle replied, observing the scene. As Major Carnage approached to meet them, "Come on, come on, come on," Cracker pressed. Then Needle made a split decision. He called out to Major Carnage. "We have been sent by Comandante Rodrigo Cortena to warn you. There are Americans coming to attack your camp." Pressing his deception further, he claimed that the intruders had been seen in a neighboring village at the other end of the river. "You heard that, boys?" Major Carnage said to the Cobra Vipers with a Russian accent. "Get back on board and go kill them!" While Major Carnage remained on site to oversee the drug shipment and wait for the next boat, some of the enemies departed, but time was running out for the Joes, and enemy reinforcements were already on the way. Using the distraction, Ricondo rigged the gas pedal of the Jeep, sending it speeding toward Major Carnage and Pardino. While the Cobra officer leapt out of the way, the biker was struck by the vehicle and pushed into the river. Meanwhile, Needle, knowing the drug shipment could not be allowed to leave, hurled an incendiary grenade at the containers. Although he had been careful not to harm civilians, they inhaled a heavy dose of the volatile substance. It gave them uncontrollable zombie-like urges, attacking anything that met their blank gaze. Identifying Carnage as the biggest threat, Needle swiftly moved into melee range. But the Cobra officer was much tougher than he looked. He shrugged off the attack without flinching and counterattacked with his machete, inflicting a critical blow to the G.I. Joe infiltrator who was defeated. From the woods, Contact and Agent Maurice had Cobra troopers pinned down. One of them fired directly at Maurice, thinking he had landed a critical hit, but the federal agent, as if nothing had happened, continued shooting. "Did you see that?" he said. "Yeah, it's like he's bulletproof," shouted the other, but as Contact riddled them with bullets, those were the last words. The Joes eventually defeated the remaining enemies as chaos faded. They subdued the intoxicated civilians and made sure the remaining drugs were set ablaze. However, before they could secure Major Carnage and Pardino, the Vipers who had left with the first Moray returned with the reinforcements. Outnumbered, the small team of G.I. Joe operatives was forced to retreat, leaving their prisoners behind. After the mission, the Joes departed Mexico and returned to the United States. Before parting ways, Agent Maurice thanked them for their assistance, but it would not be the last time they would work together. You have reached the end of this report. If you'd like to know more but don't want to wait for the next episode to drop, you can visit my blog at gijoerpgstories.wordpress.com. And if you enjoy these narrated stories, please be sure to like and subscribe. Until next time, this is David Martel, signing off.